Hi, welcome to our quick hit for configuring roles to support intuitive workflow. My name is James Travellini. I'm a solutions consultant with QuickBase. I started my QuickBase journey a little over 5 years ago, starting out in our care department. During that time, I was able to develop my foundational knowledge of the platform by supporting all of our unique customers from small businesses to large enterprise customers. I was able to learn the ins and outs of QuickBase. It was really like going through the internal QuickBase University. A couple years ago, I moved into my current role as a solutions consultant, where I work closely with our existing or potential customers, helping them realize the potential of the platform and how their current processes can be improved upon with QuickBase applications. Now, enough about me. Let's get to the session content. So our agenda for today, we will review the basics of roles and permissions. We'll dive a bit deeper into potential use cases, and we'll demo a survey use case, and then at the end, we'll conclude. So key takeaways for today. We'll want to understand really what makes roles and permissions so valuable. We'll learn how to configure roles for app access, table access, custom UI, and then at the end of that, you'll be able to test as a role or a user to understand exactly how your roles are actually functioning. And we'll also cover a few potential use cases that I'm calling the surveyor or an add record only type role, a viewer, of course, just viewing that data, and then an updater. So just being able to update records. And then we'll be able to tie all that together with everything in between. Okay, so roles and permissions, the basics. So real quick, why are roles so valuable? So not only do they provide a personalized experience for your end users with the ability to show relevant information across whether you're your employees, your suppliers, your customers, or whoever is accessing your applications. So it really, at the end of the day, is allowing them to see the most important information that they should be seeing and nothing more, nothing less. And additionally, of course, this adds a huge layer of security to your application, securing your data and making sure that you're only providing what you want to provide to the individuals accessing your data. So if we go a little bit deeper here, one of the first things within a role that you'll set is what we call app access. So within each role, admins can set whether users have the ability to manage the actual users, so invite users to the application and share that app, as well as edit app structure and permissions. So these two checkboxes that you see right here will determine the app level permissions of that role. So if you've been in a QuickBase app before and you go to the Manage Roles page, you'll likely see the app level permissions column. And you'll notice that it's a combination of either admin, basic, or sharing. So admin would be the ability to edit app structure and permissions, and sharing is managing the user and sharing the app. So you likely see with our default role settings, a viewer just has basic, like a team member could have basic as well as sharing. And then typically an admin has admin as well as sharing, but you can have a combination of those. Moving on to table access. So within each table, you can set custom conditions for how you want to determine each role is able to view or modify a record on your table. And after you've set whether this role can view or modify records, you can set custom field access to determine the specific fields they are able to view or modify. In addition to this, you can also determine whether a user in this role can add records to a table, delete records within that table, save common reports. So for this one, if you've ever been on a table homepage, you see the reports little drop down and you can see the list of reports for that table. That's what we call common reports. So this gives you the user the ability to add to that list. And finally, the ability to edit field properties. So this is really important as well. So that's the ability to create new fields, update formulas, change additional field properties like formatting and things like that. So that's definitely something you'd want to have buttoned up, making sure that the correct people are able to do those things. Moving on to user interface. So within the user interface tab, you have the following abilities. So you can set role home pages. So when someone accesses your application, what they see first. That's really important because what I would see as maybe as a manager would be much different than a team member in that role. So you want to make sure it's focused for their day-to-day work. Additionally, you can determine common report access. So like we saw on the previous slide, the ability to add to that common report access list, you can actually set individual reports to be available depending on the role who's accessing it. And then additionally to that, you can actually hide various aspects of the UI. I'm not going to list out all of the ones I have right now, but some of the big ones I'd like to point out would be the ability to hide table icons, the ability to prevent someone from either importing or exporting to your application, as well as the ability to utilize multiple record options. So for example, being able to update records via grid edit. So those are some big ones to keep in mind. I personally really like to utilize the hide table option, especially when you have a role that doesn't need access to absolutely everything in that application. So it can take a very complex app and make it look extremely simple for that end user. Moving on to some use cases. So we'll just cover a few basic use cases you might not be aware of today. So the first one is what I'm calling the surveyor. So it's really an add-only type role. And surveys are a great way to gain a better understanding of the effectiveness of the work that you do. So adding a survey use case to your QuickBase application is a quick and easy way to consume data in real time and generate key insights into the current processes that you're doing. But oftentimes the person you're sending this survey to needs little to no access to the rest of the data in your application. So in this scenario, we can create a very specialized role where the user can only add records to the survey table. The user has aspects of the UI hidden as not to confuse the end user. So in this scenario, I might actually hide every single table within my application, have them go to a particular dashboard with a button to add a survey. And then within that button, we can have them be redirected to a thank you page. So they have very little access into everything else that you'd be seeing, except for exactly what you'd want them to do. So the viewer, view only. So there are many reasons why someone may be a viewer in the application. So whether they're an executive, a subcontractor, your own customer, or really any flavor in between. And creating a view only role just allows you the visibility into the work that you're doing, but securely locking that data down within your application. Just a great way to really allow those various users that might not need to actually touch the data, input the data, but they like to have some visibility into that. So giving them that ability really can help out that entire communication process. Moving on to the updater. So this is really modify only. And it's actually a common misconception that if a role is unable to view a record, the role will not be able to modify the record. And that's just not true. So just as easily as you can set a role to be view only, you can set a role to modify only as well. But why would you want to do this, you ask? So only providing the ability to modify records or maybe even add records is a great use case for a service account. So whether that be for your pipelines or your internal scripts. And really a service account is used as a way to easily manage these integrations so that IT can govern these types of integrations in a much easier way. So for example, say someone who built that original script or that original pipeline leaves your company, you still have access via this service account. So another important one to keep in mind here. Also, don't forget, you can always test as a role or a user. So this feature allows the admin to test their application for roles they've created. This allows you to ensure your role is functioning as intended prior to launching that role to production. And note, testing as a role will show you what you would see when you're assigned to that role. So just a quick example of something along those lines. Let's say we have a project manager role and we have a view only setting where the project manager is the current user. So we can only view projects that we're assigned to. If we're testing as a role in that project manager role, if I'm not assigned to anything, I'm not going to see anything. So just keep that in mind. And then when you're testing as a user, it'll show you exactly what that specific user would see in that role that you've set for them as well. One other thing to keep in mind with that though, is when you're testing as a user, you cannot save records. So this is an ensure data integrity and not to spoof your data when it comes to the built-in fields like record owner or last modified. Okay, so it's time for our demo. So we'll cover some basics and then go into our use cases here. So now we are in our example application. We're on the manager's homepage right now. And at the moment, you can see that I have the gear icon right here. I can see users. So I'm an admin right now. So what I'm going to do is I'll just jump over here to our users. And then I'm going to go ahead and click manage roles. So I have a few roles that I've been playing around with right now. And just to point a few things out while we're here, you can see the name of the role. We can see the app level permissions like I was talking about earlier, whether you have admin and sharing, basic and sharing, or maybe just basic. As well as you can see which home pages we're using for each of these roles right now. So we have different home pages and dashboards set up that we'd want to set for each role specifically. So what we'll do right now is we'll create our first role, and we'll just quickly show you. Let's do a viewer role, but that's already taken. So I'm just going to say viewer and power test for the moment. If I could spell, there we go. Okay. So right here, we have a blank canvas of what we'd want our role to look like. So over here, this is where we're going to set our app level access. So whether we want this person to be able to manage users and share the app and edit app structure and permissions. Right now, I don't think we need that for the viewer, so we're going to leave that. Then all we need to do here is set how we want them to view these records. So you can see, you can have them view all records, groups records. This is actually something to keep in mind here as well. So say you invited a group to your application. Say it was a CRM, you invited sales reps in an entire group. We could set this up so that when a sales rep is assigned to a record, we can see everyone within our group, something along those lines. You'll also see any other user fields you have on this table listed. So if I'm, for example, the project manager, that's all I'm going to be able to view is what I'm assigned to as the project manager. One other thing to keep in mind, if we come over here to custom rule, this is actually really similar to setting up filters in reports, if you're familiar with that. So we have all of the different fields on this table available to us. So we can get as simple or as complex with these custom permissions here. So we could add really as many different conditions as we need. We can set and or logic. So any of these things could be true, or all of these things need to be true. And you can even nest them, just like in your reports. So maybe this first thing needs to be true, and then either of these two things could be. I'm not going to save that for now, but I'll just go ahead and set these to all records. And that's all you would need to do for the viewer. Simple as that. If we were to move forward here and look at the modifier or the updater is what I was calling it. I'm just going to quickly pop over here to properties. I'm going to update this and say this is actually my updater now. Again, you can include a description of what this is intended for as well if you'd like to do that. I'm just going to quickly save for now. We'll pop back over here and set these back to none. Get through that as quick as we can. And then same idea. You would just come over here and allow them to modify instead. And in the example that I had for, like, for example, a service account, I think what would make the most sense in this scenario is you have the ability to not only modify all records, but you have the ability to maybe add as well as delete records, depending on what you want your integration, your script, your pipeline to do. So we could come in here, check these boxes, and we're all set. So now we can update all records, we can add records, and if needed, we can even delete them. And then we can ignore save common reports, edit field properties for the moment. I don't think we need to worry about that. And for now, we can leave the field access set to full access on all these fields. Cool. So now I'm going to jump back. I'm going to create a new role. This is going to be a kind of flavor of both the view only as well as the edit. So I'm going to go here and call this survey taker. Empower. So in this scenario, I want them to be able to view projects that they've been assigned to and add survey records. So I'm going to say view projects, add survey. Okay. And we won't need them to be able to share or edit, so we can leave that alone. And in this application, I actually have a relationship from projects to surveys. So in this scenario, I'm going to say when the user is the customer contact, they can view those records. And then we're not going to give them the ability to view or modify these surveys, but we're just going to give them the ability to add. And then finally here, what I'll do is come over here to custom field access. We haven't taken a closer look at this yet. So if we just quickly come over here, so similarly to being able to view or modify a record, you can set that same access on the individual fields of what you're able to view or modify. So right now, I want them to be able to modify just about everything on here, but I have a score formula here at the end based on what we're actually submitting within these surveys. I have our 5-star rating field is what we're using right now. So based on those ratings, I come up with the final score for what that survey ended up being. In this case, I don't want the survey taker to know that we have a score or that what their score is. So I'm going to go ahead and set this to none for them. Perfect. So I'll go ahead and save that. We'll exit settings here. And actually, we're not quite done with that role. Before we finish that role, I just want to quickly show you the dashboard that we're going to create for them. So if we come in here to the app settings, go to pages, I have a few set up already, and we're going to look at this thank you here. So I actually created what's called like a rich text page. Actually, scratch that. We'll come to that in a second. So here's the survey homepage. Very simple. Just have a quick report here for all the projects, so they'll see which ones they've been assigned to. They'll have a view into that. And then we have a new survey button. And if we take a closer look here, this is actually what's going to come to that thank you page I just briefly mentioned. So if we go into the button properties, you have a new record on the surveys table. Then after saving the new record, typically we redirect it back to the home page by default, but you can change this to go to another page instead. And then I'm grabbing that thank you rich text that I created as well. So just keep that in mind as an option. So I'll come here, we'll save this, and then we'll just quickly take a look at the rich text page. So it's really just like a text editor. So I just have a nice little thank you for submitting a survey, pasted a thank you GIF here, and then a hyperlink back here if I wanted to go back to the original homepage that we were on. Cool. So let's save that. And then let's jump back into our role one more time before we test this all out. So we go back to users, come over here to manage roles. And then here's my survey taker and power test role we just created. Went through all of our permissions. These should be set, ready to go. But let's jump over to user interface now. So by default, it actually has been set to the manager home. So we want to update that and do the survey homepage here. Great. And if we wanted to, we can set some report access up. I think I'm actually just going to uncheck everything. All right. And we'll save that. Perfect. And then we can just quickly go through the rest of these to see if there's anything else we'd want to hide or not for their role. Probably want to hide the ability to create or customize reports. They won't really be able to. They won't have much access, but let's hide that so that they're not confused with anything. Maybe hiding the personal settings link. Won't need to worry about hiding app and table settings because they don't have that ability to begin with. Won't need to worry about hiding the users because they don't have the ability to manage users anyway. We can probably leave favorites and recents or the ability to search, and they won't need the ability to test as another role, so we'll hide that. And then if we come down here, these are some of the other aspects of the UI that you'd be able to hide. In this scenario, I want to hide all the table bars, just have them work directly out of that dashboard so that they're not confused with any other things they likely won't have access to, right? And then from there, definitely want to just make sure this is all buttoned up and hide the rest of these here. Maybe we'll leave print if they just want to quickly print a report from the projects table they have access to. And then other than that, we should be good. Everything has been saved. We'll click exit settings for now. Okay, so now we're ready to test as our role. So let's jump over here into the upper right where your name is listed. And then from here, you can select whether you want to test as a role or test as a user. So I jump over here, you can see all the users listed. In this scenario, I just want to test as the role and see what it would look like if I was that individual. So I'm going to come in here. We'll select the survey taker and power test that we just created. So you can see the dashboard that we have here. You can see all of the table icons are missing. You can see I have my new survey button, and I have a view only report into the project that I'm assigned to as the customer contact. Great. So now we'll go ahead and click new survey. We'll just fill out the form, select the project in which we're doing a survey for, and then we'll answer these various 3 questions. And we'll just go through and rate them. Oh, good. And you'll notice this table actually had a score field, and it's no longer listed on this form. So I'll go ahead and save that. And when I do, I get redirected to this thank you page. And then I can come back and click that hyperlink and go submit another survey if I need to. Perfect. Cool. So that is a quick little demo of configuring roles and permissions. Let's jump back to our deck. Okay, so let's just cover our key takeaways once again. We now have an understanding of what makes roles and permissions so valuable. We were able to configure roles and understand app access, table access, custom UI, and then putting that all together when you're testing as a role or a user, making sure that the role ended up the way that you intended it to. Additionally, we covered a few different potential use cases, what I'm calling the surveyor, the viewer, the updater, and really every flavor in between. So thank you so much for attending this quick hit on configuring permissions. I hope you've learned something new and are able to take that back to your applications. Please leave any feedback you may have and be sure to attend all the other amazing quick hit sessions, as well as all the other content here at Empower. And don't forget to check out the QuickBase community Slack channel throughout the entire conference, where you can chat with QuickBase employees as the rest of the QuickBase community. Thank you so much.